What makes this Warriors team so much better than years prior? A 16-2 start, the best record in the league, haters at every stop. Sounds a lot like 2016 all over again, doesn't it? Multiple superstars, 4 all-stars. Wait, hold on just a second. Yeah, that couldn't be right. A player nicknamed Triple Single, a quote-unquote bust that Minnesota paid us to take with a first-round lottery pick, a player recovering from hip injuries, and a pick passed on by 27 other teams in the league just 2 years ago. This is all the recipe that Chef Curry needed in the starting lineup to dominate the NBA. But he's not even ranked as high as you would think. You'd be hard-pressed to find Steph Curry listed as a top 10 player of all time, yet somehow there are at least 2 players currently active, ranked above Steph, arguably still performing on par with their prime and teamed up with certified Hall of Famers, yet during their matchups with Steph, he still left them in the dust, blowing the doors off both teams and leaving every coach in the league scratching their heads, including the Warriors' own Steve Kerr.
You know, you get a guy taking 40-footers and you're on the sidelines going, yeah, it's a good shot, good job. Explain that. We've never seen this before.
I mean, we get it. He's a great shooter, they're likely saying. But there are many shooters in the league. What makes him so different?
It's remarkable and yet completely expected. Watching Steph do what he does night after night.
When Steph was teamed up with Kevin Durant, the team was unbeatable. But not for the reason you or many others might think.
Makes it 51 points for Kevin Durant.
The thought was that Kevin Durant was the greatest player in the world, and you added KD to an already great team, so by default, they become unbeatable, correct? Well, yes and no. This idea has permeated the NBA based on your typical formula for creating a winning team. You find a franchise player, build around him, and if you're lucky enough to be good enough, a free agent superstar may sign with your team, which would push your team over the top and even championships. That's kind of the bare minimum necessary nowadays to compete at such a level, and while that may have been true about the others, there was something else. There was something else about that team that made them invincible. Despite the injury to Klay Thompson and the departure of Kevin Durant, that something hasn't changed. It should be pretty obvious that factor is none other than Steph Curry, but we'll have to go a bit deeper than that. After all, he's just a shooter. I mean, how deep would we have to go? First of all, we'll acknowledge that this year, Steph Curry is playing at a level that rivals or is arguably better than the years he was crowned the MVP, as well as the unanimous MVP. Not only is he doing this without the help of a second All-Star, he's in a tit-for-tat battle with Kevin Durant for the scoring title, a title Steph Curry won just last year. Speaking of last year, Curry led the league in 50-point games and only missed out on getting his 3rd MVP because, get this, his team was not good enough in their backup roles to make the playoffs. This year, again, Curry is already leading the league in 50-point games, and with the rise of Jordan Poole and veterans who add some size to the Warriors bench, Steph Curry is carrying this team in his 13th year in the league as the first seed, and critics can't quite figure it out. Curry is playing at an all-time defensive level with 28 steals so far this season, ranking him 15th among the league leaders in that category. Over his career, Steph Curry had a defensive rating of 106.8. This year, he's cut that down to under 100 and is currently sitting at 99.7, which is the lowest of any guard this season. Let that sink in. Steph Curry has the best defensive rating of all guards in the NBA, is in a virtual tie for the scoring title, and another fact I have yet to mention, has the highest plus-minus of any player in the league. He's so far ahead in plus-minus, the distance between Steph Curry and second place is further away than the distance from second place to 40th. In other words, Steph Curry on the floor is the worst thing for any team in the NBA not named the Golden State Warriors. So, did you get the secret to the chef's cooking? If not, keep watching. With Steph Curry on the floor, the Warriors are a plus 21. That means if Steph Curry were to play the entire 48 minutes, they would be outscoring opponents by 21 points on average every single game. With a record of 16-2, the Warriors have blown out their opponents by double digits in each of the 16 games they've won. The 2 they lost, Those games were decided by one possession, with one of those losses coming in overtime. The Warriors are so good this year, the Phoenix Suns on a 14-game win streak still can't catch up to the Warriors. How do you beat 14 teams in a row and still can't catch up to a team that's missing 2 starters and was supposed to finish the season as the 9th seed? Something just isn't adding up. The Warriors currently have an offensive rating of 113.6, second only to the Utah Jazz at 114.5. The Warriors also currently have the best defensive rating of 100.2, followed by the Clippers at 102.9. That puts the Warriors at second and first for offensive and defensive ratings. No other team even comes close to these numbers, with the Miami Heat a distant second with their offensive and defensive rating at 6th and 4th respectively. Golden State is so dominating in the second half. The point margin between the Warriors and second place is the same as that of second place to 12th, by which point teams are either tying their opponents for points scored in the second half, or they're losing the second half matchup altogether. Despite all this, the Kevin Durant-led Nets are still ranked with over 3 times the odds of winning the championship as compared to the Warriors, depending on where you look. Let's not forget to include the fact that the Warriors have gone to the finals every single time they have started 16-2 or better. That has happened 3 times in the Steve Kerr era, and guess who was unable to stop the Warriors 2 of those 3 times? Kevin Durant. The one other time the Warriors went at least 16-2 and didn't stop KD, he had joined the Warriors. Another interesting fact to note is that Steve Kerr has switched up Steph Curry's minutes on the floor by subbing him out earlier in first and third quarters and putting him in to start the second and fourth quarters instead. This forces opponents to change their strategy and approach to the Warriors, but the newness of what Kerr is doing throws them off so much a counter strategy is unable to noticeably impact the game. Teams have used the beginning of second and fourth quarters to run the score up against the Warriors, as those minutes typically have not had Steph Curry on the floor. This year, they have not been so lucky, and with Steph averaging the same number of minutes as he did last year, the Warriors are getting better results by allowing Steph to stay in the game at time slots in which he historically hasn't done so, and gain an edge against opponents who would look to tear it up when Steph Curry's been taking a break. Because his impact on the floor is so great, teams typically have to dedicate multiple players to stopping Steph Curry. We've seen the box and 1, and we've seen the triangle and 2 defense that opposing coaches have thrown out there to try to throw the Warriors off balance. Heck, we've seen the reverse box and 1, and it still wasn't enough to stop the Warriors. This is because teams are approaching the Warriors like the typical franchise with a superstar. You stop the superstar, and you stop the team. Unfortunately, Steph is a different type of superstar, and once the Warriors figured out the opposing team's game plan, Steph was able to easily blow it up. For example, the Warriors knew that going up against the Raptors, Fred VanVleet was going to be tasked with guarding Steph. He is the perfect player to make Curry's shots difficult and will be committed to stopping Steph on offense as they would run the traditional box and 1, while hoping the remaining 4 players would be able to play zone defense, forcing Wiggins and Poole to shoot threes and thus beat the Warriors. They figured without Steph shooting, the Warriors do not have an offense. This is exactly the problem with the misguided conception that Steph Curry is just a shooter. If he was in fact just a shooter, this would have easily shut down the Warriors. On the contrary, Steph is a very capable facilitator, plays defense at a high level, and to top it off, draws so much additional attention on the court, it is all but impossible to stop. While being doubled, Steph was able to find his teammates open and get them looks as if they were in shoot-around practice. This increases his teammates' efficiency, being able to knock down these easy looks and pulling the Warriors ahead of opponents. With no other true plan in place, Nick Nurse was able to slow down the scoring aspect of Steph Curry, but still suffer a demoralizing defeat as the Warriors punished the pointless tactic. And that's just it. Teams only seem to think of Steph Curry as a shooter, try to guard him as such, and end up unable to contain the Warriors superstar. Unfortunately, that's the best tactic to beat the Warriors, and sadly, Steph is playing at a level where you just can't stop or even contain him. So, in short, it won't work. The only hope is that Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, and Andrew Wiggins all have bad shooting games at the same time. Just imagine the chaos when Klay Thompson returns.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
Let me know if there's a strategy you think will beat this Warriors team by posting it below in the comments. What team do you think has the best chance of beating the Warriors in a conference finals or title finals matchup? Thanks for watching. Until next time.
I'm a player, I don't give a prayer, man.
a naysayer. A block so hard, sweetie gets served. Call me Lonzo Ball, bitches get swerved.
Usually I don't get down with these girls, but tonight it's on my mind.